I thought this vacation would be a peaceful escape. I never imagined how chaotic everything could get in just a few days. Every moment seemed to test my patience in ways I wasn't prepared for. So, I was supposed to have this dream vacation with my wife. Just the two of us. Sun, beach, cocktails, maybe even finally reconnecting without the stress of work or family constantly hanging over us. We hadn't taken a proper vacation in years, so I was genuinely looking forward to it. Honestly, I thought it would be one of those trips where we'd come back closer, maybe even re-spark things a bit, because lately, I'd felt like we'd been drifting. Now, here's the thing. I knew her family was a lot. They're the kind of people who think boundaries is a dirty word. Her parents still act like they have to supervise her life, and her sister, oh boy, she's the type who believes every inconvenience in her life should become someone else's problem. But I figured, hey, we're going alone this time. No family, no interruptions, just us. That was the whole reason I said yes when she suggested the trip in the first place. Except, I should have known better. Because right at the airport, before we even boarded, I got my first surprise. We roll into the airport, bags in hand, and I'm already in full vacation mode. My mind is drifting ahead to the pool, the beach, the cocktails I promised myself I'd savor without a single work email interrupting me. I can practically feel the warm sun on my skin and hear the waves crashing. After months of endless deadlines, chores, and the usual grind, this trip was supposed to be our escape. Just me and my wife. No interruptions. No expectations. Just peace. And then I see them. Her parents. Right there. Standing in the middle of the terminal with their luggage, smiling as if they had been waiting there just for us. I do a double take because, honestly, my brain refuses to process it. How could they be here? We specifically planned this trip to be alone. This was supposed to be our time. Before I can even fully register my shock, her sister appears, pushing a stroller with her kid bundled up and looking around like she owns the place. My stomach drops. I feel it twist in that instant gut-sinking panic you get when you realize things are about to go very wrong. I literally freeze, my brain scrambling for explanations. Maybe it's a coincidence, right? Maybe they're all flying somewhere else, and we just happened to cross paths at the airport? But then her mom waves at us, cheerfully, casually, like this whole scenario was perfectly normal and planned. Like we were supposed to greet them with hugs and smiles and act as if it was all fine. My mind is screaming, what the hell is going on? I lean over to my wife, lowering my voice so only she can hear, and whisper, what the hell is this? Her response is this awkward, nervous little smile, the kind that usually precedes bad news. Oh, don't worry, she says. They're staying at the same resort, but we'll have our own room, our own plans. They won't interfere. It'll be fun. I hear the words, but all I feel is this cold dread creeping down my spine. Fun. Fun. This isn't fun. It's a nightmare waiting to happen. I take a deep breath and force myself to bite my tongue. I don't want a full-blown argument before we even clear security. I tell myself, okay, maybe it won't be that bad. Maybe they'll respect boundaries. Maybe we can salvage this. Spoiler alert, it was so much worse than I could have ever imagined. That brief moment of hope dies instantly, replaced by a creeping sense of impending chaos. So, we finally land, dragging our luggage through the airport, my mind still trying to shake off the stress of travel and settle into vacation mode. I'm picturing the resort's pool, the ocean just beyond it, the sound of waves lapping at the shore, maybe a cocktail in hand while my wife lounges beside me. It's supposed to be a fresh start, a chance to relax and reconnect. I can almost taste the freedom. We arrive at the resort, finally, and head to the front desk to check in. The guy behind the counter is cheerful and professional, handing me a stack of receipts to sign. I start skimming through them casually, expecting the usual charges for our room and maybe a welcome drink. But then my eyes widen. Every single reservation, her parents, her sister, even the extra cot for the kid, was charged to my card. Thousands of dollars. Just gone. And I hadn't even known about it. My stomach drops, and my hands start to feel clammy. I pull my wife aside, trying to keep my voice calm enough not to cause a scene in the lobby. Why is my card paying for everyone? I whisper, trying to make sense of it. She barely blinks at me, just shrugs like it's nothing, like I'm overreacting. Well, she says casually, you have the good card with the points. And my parents really wanted to come, but couldn't afford it. Same with my sister. It's not a big deal, right? We'll all have fun together. Not a big deal. Like emptying my account for 4 extra adults and a toddler was just a minor hiccup. I can feel the heat rising in my chest. I'm furious. How could she think this was acceptable? She knew how much I hated being used like an ATM. Yet here I am, standing at the front desk, silently swallowing this betrayal. I don't want to make a scene. I've never been close with her family. They treat me like a convenient accessory to their lives, not an actual person, and I always try to keep it civil. And I thought she understood how disrespectful and exhausting it was to be taken for granted. Apparently, I was wrong. In that instant, a cold realization washes over me. This trip, the one I had been looking forward to for months, wasn't going to be what I had imagined. This wasn't just a minor inconvenience. This was the start of a vacation hijacked, and I hadn't even begun to understand just how chaotic it would get. The first night, I'm finally trying to unwind. After the chaos at the airport and the shock of discovering my card had paid for everyone, I convinced myself to make the best of it. It's our room, I tell myself. We still have privacy. We can still have our time alone. I'm imagining a calm night, maybe a glass of wine on the balcony, listening to the ocean, letting all the stress melt away. Wrong. Around 9 p.m., there's a knock at the door. Actually, not even a knock. The door just swings open. Her mom steps inside, carrying a bag of snacks, looking completely at ease. No hi. No sorry to bother you. Nothing. Just, do you guys have extra towels? The resort didn't bring enough. My jaw tightens. I hand over a couple towels, already annoyed, but before I can even close the door, her dad strolls in too. Hey, do you have a phone charger I can borrow? He asks casually. Like he's stopping by for coffee, not barging into someone else's space. Meanwhile, my wife is sitting on the bed, laughing like this is some kind of family sitcom. She doesn't say a word to stop them, doesn't even look concerned. I'm sitting there in swim trunks, realizing that my quiet evening, the one thing I'd been holding onto all day, is evaporating in real time. It doesn't stop there. The next morning, her parents show up again. This time, no pretense of knocking. They needed sunscreen, apparently. They set themselves up on the balcony, chatting and making themselves comfortable while I sit there, staring at them, trying to start my day, trying to reclaim just a few minutes of normalcy. 45 minutes later, I'm still waiting for them to leave. My coffee has gone cold, my patience is gone, and my temper is quietly building. Finally, I turn to my wife and say, "Can you please tell them to stop barging in here?" She shrugs, brushing it off. They're just like that. Don't take it personally. Easy for her to say. She's grown up with people walking through her life without boundaries. For me, someone who values privacy, someone who expected at least this much control over our vacation, it feels like every ounce of sanctuary I had imagined has been obliterated on day one. I realize in that moment that this trip isn't just going to be inconvenient. It's going to test every limit of my patience, my sense of personal space, and my tolerance for being taken for granted. By day 3, I honestly thought I'd seen it all with the towel raids, the random drop-ins, and the general invasion of our space. I had resigned myself to the fact that my idea of a peaceful vacation had already been hijacked. But then her sister dropped the next bomb. The classic, "Can you watch him for just a minute?" line. She waltzed into our room, plopped her kid down in front of the TV, and said she was just going to run to the resort shop for a few minutes. 5 hours later, she still hadn't returned. At first, I didn't mind. Really, I like kids, and I figured she'd be back in 20 minutes. But 20 minutes turned into an hour turned into lunch turned into nap time, and somewhere along the line I realized I was basically running a daycare in what was supposed to be my vacation suite. I was juggling snack requests, diaper changes, tantrums, and can I have juice demands while trying to maintain a shred of sanity. Every time I looked at the clock, my blood pressure inched higher. When she finally reappeared, like nothing had happened, she didn't apologize. Not a word. Instead, she gave me this half smirk and said, "What's the big deal? You were just in the room anyway." My jaw practically hit the floor. I told her straight up that I wasn't her babysitter, that this was my vacation, and that she couldn't just leave her kid with me for hours like it was nothing. She rolled her eyes, muttered something about me being selfish, and left like I was the unreasonable one. Later, I tried talking to my wife, hoping she'd finally back me up. I was prepared for a little negotiation, maybe even some defense. But she gave me the same tired, can line she always uses when her family crosses boundaries. She's family. That's just how she is. Just how she is. As if dumping a toddler on someone for half a day without warning is somehow cute or normal. I felt my frustration boiling over, hot and relentless, realizing in that moment that I wasn't a husband or a guest. I was just an extra set of hands, a human convenience, and my wife wasn't going to lift a finger to protect me or acknowledge how unreasonable this was. It was at that point that I understood something crystal clear. This trip wasn't going to be a vacation at all, at least not for me. It was going to be a lesson in patience, endurance, and, eventually, planning my revenge. The next morning, I was hoping for some semblance of calm after the previous day's chaos, but it didn't last long. Her sister came knocking again, this time with even less regard for boundaries. She barged in, practically shoving her kid through the door, and tossed over a casual, "Be back soon," as if I was running a resort daycare service on demand. I froze for a moment, staring at the tiny face looking up at me with innocent curiosity while my stomach sank. That was it. I'd had enough. I set my jaw, crossed my arms, and told her flat out, "No, I'm not watching him. I came here for my vacation, not yours." She didn't take it well. Her eyes narrowed, lips pressed tight, and she launched into a tirade about how I had no heart and how I should be more supportive since she never gets time to herself. I could feel my blood pressure rising as I reminded her, calmly but firmly, that I had never signed up to parent her child. If she needed a babysitter, she should have planned ahead or hired one before dumping the responsibility on me without warning. But she just huffed, rolled her eyes, and muttered something under her breath like I was the selfish villain of the story. Before I could even catch my breath, her parents stormed into the room, red-faced and flustered. Apparently, the sister had run to them, crying and exaggerating how mean I had been. Suddenly, I was surrounded by judgmental glares, lectures about family duty, and endless advice about stepping up like I had volunteered for this circus. I could feel the anger bubbling inside me, a mixture of disbelief and exhaustion. And then it hit me. I'd had it. I looked them squarely in the eyes and said what I had been holding back for days. They were freeloading on my dime, and they had no right to demand anything from me. The room went completely silent. Her parents froze, their faces stiff with shock. Her sister snatched the kid and retreated to the corner, sulking like a bratty teenager caught off guard. And my wife? She just sat there. Not a word, not a glance, nothing to defend me, nothing to defend them. That shrug of hers, calm, casual, dismissive, cut deeper than any words. In that moment, I realized something crystal clear. If I didn't stand up for myself now, if I didn't set boundaries firmly and permanently, I would never get out of this cycle. This wasn't just about the vacation anymore. It was about respect, and I had to claim it before it was too late. That night, I finally cornered my wife. I couldn't hold it in anymore. I told her, point blank, this isn't a vacation. This is me funding a family reunion where I get treated like crap. I didn't sign up for this. She barely looked up from her phone. All I got was a tired sigh and, "Babe, they're family. You know how they are. Don't let it get to you." That was it. No acknowledgement of how much money I'd shelled out. No apology for her parents barging into our room or her sister dumping a kid on me. Just a shrug and some vague, "That's just how they are" excuse, like I was supposed to suck it up forever. It hit me like a ton of bricks. My wife wasn't on my side at all. She was so used to catering to her family that she couldn't, or wouldn't, see how unfair this was. And that's when the switch flipped in my head. I stopped being angry and started getting calculating. If they wanted to freeload and walk all over me, maybe it was time to give them exactly what they were asking for, just not in the way they expected. That's the night I started planning my revenge. Lying in bed that night, staring at the ceiling while my wife scrolled mindlessly on her phone like nothing had happened, I felt the familiar pulse of frustration mixed with disbelief. Every random intrusion, every unchecked demand from her parents and sister, every dump the kid on me moment had built up like a pressure cooker inside me. And it hit me. If I kept playing along, this entire trip would be me footing the bill while her family drained me of every ounce of patience, every shred of vacation bliss I had been imagining for months. I couldn't let that happen. Not this time. I started running scenarios in my head, thinking like a strategist instead of a frustrated husband. What would hit them hardest? What could force them to actually recognize how entitled, spoiled, and invasive they had been? Money, comfort, convenience. They were used to me silently absorbing everything, never saying no, always making excuses, always covering their mess. What if, instead of arguing, I just quietly removed myself as their safety net and let them feel the consequences of their actions? The resort had all the luxuries we had dreamed about: excursions, private dining, spa packages, and more, but all of those extras came at a cost. And suddenly, I realized that cost wasn't going to come from my account for anyone but me. The next morning, I walked down to the front desk and calmly made the necessary changes. I put a lock on charges to my room, made it explicitly clear that only I could authorize any purchases. Drinks by the pool, shopping sprees at the gift shop, not happening unless they paid for it themselves. I could already hear the mental gears turning in their heads as they realized I was no longer their personal bank. Then I did something that felt almost decadent. I booked myself a series of solo excursions, a deep-sea fishing trip, a catamaran tour, and even a private dinner for one, with nothing but the ocean, the sunset, and me. All prepaid, all locked in, all blissfully mine. I didn't tell my wife. I didn't tell her family. I just carried myself through breakfast with a calm, casual smile while her mom whined about the all-inclusive, not covering everything she wanted. For the first time since the trip had begun, I felt a spark of control returning to my life. I was no longer just a passive participant in this circus. I was finally the one steering the ship, and it felt incredible. For the first time, the vacation was mine again, and not theirs. It didn't take long for the fallout to hit. At the pool that afternoon, her dad tried to order some top-shelf cocktails and charge them to the room. The waiter came back and politely explained that the room account was restricted. Her dad looked at me, eyebrows raised, and I just smiled and said, "Guess it's not covered anymore. You'll need to pay out of pocket." The look on his face was priceless, like someone had just asked him to donate a kidney. He muttered something about not having his wallet, and my wife immediately started fumbling for hers. I stopped her. "Nope. If they wanted this trip so badly, they can cover their extras." I said it calmly, but the message was clear. Later, her sister cornered me, furious because she wanted to book a dolphin swim for her kid, but couldn't put it on my room. I shrugged and said, "Then maybe don't plan vacations you can't afford." She stomped off, muttering about how selfish I was. My wife noticed the tension, but kept trying to act like everything was fine. I could tell she was embarrassed. Her parents were griping. Her sister was sulking. But instead of confronting me directly, she just gave me the cold shoulder. I didn't care. I spent the next day out on the water, fishing with strangers who treated me better in 2 hours than her family had the entire trip. For the first time, I was actually enjoying myself. By day 5, the tension had reached a boiling point. Every little annoyance, every ignored boundary, every little intrusion had been building like a pressure cooker, and I could feel the steam whistling in my head as we sat down for breakfast. The restaurant was bustling with vacationers, servers hustling past, the clinking of cutlery and plates filling the air, but I barely noticed any of it. I was locked on the spectacle unfolding at my table. Her mom, her eyes sharp and lips pressed tight, finally lost whatever patience she had left. She slammed her coffee cup down with enough force to make a few nearby diners glance over and said, loud enough for half the room to hear, "Why are you being so difficult? We're family. You should want to take care of us." I didn't even flinch. My mind went cold and clear, every ounce of pent-up frustration and exhaustion focused into a single, precise response. I looked her dead in the eye and said, calmly but firmly, "I already did take care of you. I paid for this entire trip. Every room, every meal, every flight. And instead of a thank you, I've been treated like a free babysitter and a human ATM. That ends now." Her sister immediately jumped in, her voice high and outraged, accusing me of humiliating them in front of everyone. Her dad puffed up, chest out, trying to assert some sort of authority, lecturing me about respect and family. My wife sat there, silent, eyes fixed on her plate, completely neutral. Not a word in my defense, not a glance to calm the chaos. That silence hit harder than any yelling could have. It was louder than the clatter of dishes, louder than her mother's accusations, louder than my own heart pounding in my ears. I could feel the surge of resolve flooding through me, and I doubled down. You all wanted a vacation? Great. Enjoy it. But from now on, you live within your means. No more running to me. No more dumping your problems in my lap. You're on your own. I pushed my chair back slowly, deliberately, and stood up, my movements calm and deliberate as if marking a boundary they could not ignore. I gave a small, polite nod, wished them a pleasant day, and walked out, leaving the stunned silence behind me. The rest of the resort must have thought I'd completely lost it. Perhaps a scene worthy of a reality show, but honestly, it felt like liberation. For the first time all trip, I wasn't being steamrolled, used, or walked over. For the first time, I could breathe, and it was sweet. That evening, after her family had stormed off to their rooms sulking, my wife cornered me by the balcony. I could see the frustration and maybe even fear in her eyes. "Why are you doing this?" she asked quietly. I shrugged, leaning against the railing. "Because nobody listened before. Not you, not your sister, not your parents. So I decided to make it clear I'm not here to be everyone's unpaid servant." She shook her head, like she still didn't fully understand. "This isn't just about money or convenience. You're hurting them. You're hurting me." I looked at her straight in the eye. "I've been hurting all week. Watching my money spent without thanks, my privacy ignored, my vacation stolen, and you did nothing. I'm not sorry they feel hurt. They needed to feel it. Maybe now, everyone will finally get it." For the first time, I felt a shift in our dynamic. She realized she couldn't just sit back and shrug anymore. Whether she liked it or not, the honeymoon version of her husband was gone. By the time we were packing to leave, the mood in her family had completely shifted. Her parents barely looked at me, her sister avoided eye contact, and even my wife seemed quieter than usual. The entitled smiles and casual demands were gone, replaced by awkward tension and, honestly, some grudging respect. On the plane ride home, I noticed my wife was unusually reflective. She didn't apologize outright, but she kept squeezing my hand and making small, sincere attempts at conversation, things she'd never done during the trip. For once, it felt like she actually saw me and the effort I'd put in, instead of brushing everything off as family quirks. Her family? They didn't like it. They probably never will. But I realized I didn't need their approval anymore. And my relationship with my wife? It changed, too. She started understanding boundaries, respect, and that I'm not just the guy footing everyone else's vacation. It was messy, but it was real. Looking back, I learned a lot. Sometimes, standing up for yourself isn't mean. It's necessary. And yes, revenge can be sweet when it's about teaching lessons, not just getting even. Back home, life slowly settled into a new rhythm. My wife and I talked more openly about boundaries, money, and respect than we ever had before. She started noticing when her family crossed the line, and, surprisingly, she actually enforced some limits. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. Her family? They never admitted they were wrong, but I could tell they weren't treating me the same way. No more casual borrowing, no more random room invasions, no more taking me for granted. The dynamic had shifted entirely, and it all happened because I stopped silently absorbing everything and finally stood my ground. The biggest lesson I walked away with: don't confuse love for tolerance of abuse. You can care about someone and still refuse to be treated like a doormat. And revenge doesn't have to be cruel. It just has to make people think. Would I do the same trip again with them? Probably not. But I left that vacation knowing one thing for certain: standing up for yourself is the best souvenir you can ever bring home.